Good evening, everybody. Yay!
Hi. Hello, everyone.
How are you guys doing tonight? I feel a little frazzled, but it's all great now that we're here. I'm super excited.
Yeah.
So
I think frazzled is a good word for today.
All right. We already have Tammy from Tampa in. All right. Love the pink waving hands. Awesome. And Corpus Christi. Look at that. That's pretty awesome.
Everyone,
There they are.
Hand pink waving. Corpus Christi, Sandra, Tammy.
Cool.
All right.
Everybody's coming in. Yay.
Hello.
Isn't it great?
Yeah, we can probably just kind of just hang out for just a few minutes till a few more people come, I guess, and then get on with it.
Get on. Yes. And talk about great things in quilting. All right, Houston. All right.
Yeah, let us know when you get in here. Let us know where you're from.
Oh, we got a
Country you're
California.
in, state or
Aw.
province or
Aw.
whatever. Hey, I know that name. Hey, Carrie.
That's so awesome.
Oh no,
Northern
Surrey's
Colorado.
kicking in again. She's talking.
We have somebody from Omaha. We have one of my friends from Omaha.
Fairhope,
Alabama.
Alabama. I know where that is.
Isn't it awesome being from all over? I love it. I think it's so cool.
That's down where my parents used to live, not far from Fort Walton Beach.
There's my
Colorado.
bestie. Hey, Jess.
There's Jessie.
Jesse's from
I
Montreal.
hope he is doing okay.
He didn't tell us where he's from, but I know where he lives.
Okay. Oh, Joan, awesome. Mary Gentrup, awesome. Yay, look at all this. This is awesome. So,
There's
A couple
Wendy.
people from Omaha. Yeah.
yeah,
Cool.
Joan
It's good.
and Joan.
Go ahead. No, I was just going to say I recognize a lot of names. It's awesome.
Yeah, Joan comes in and rents from us. So that's really kind of awesome. She's amazing. And she works from the front, Tracy. She works from the front.
You and
Kathy,
I will get
is your
along
mic
just
on?
fine.
Yes. Is it not working?
You might want to slide it up a little bit. Anybody else not able to hear Kathy other than me?
I can hear her fine.
Okay. It may just be on my end.
Okay.
I hear you better now.
All right.
Oh, there you
Not
go.
sure.
We're good. Move stuff around, you know. Oh, we got Linda from Awesome. All right. Yay. All right.
Barbara from Halton Hills, Ontario. Hey, Barbara. That's not too far from here.
Look at Carrie still reading the books and watching the first 100.
Thank you. That
That's
makes
pretty
me
awesome.
happy.
All
That
right.
makes me
Got another person from Omaha. You know, once in Omaha, we always have
West
a joke.
Virginia.
Yeah. So in Omaha, there's this Air Force base called Offutt. OFFUTT, Offutt Air Force Base, right? And that's how we got to Omaha. Is my husband got stationed at Offutt. So the joke is once Offutt, never Offutt. And here I am still in Omaha.
And the joke is my dad never got stationed there and should have. So
Oh,
it's like
how fun.
Michigan, West Virginia, Carter Lake,
Iowa.
IA. That's Iowa, right?
Iowa. Yeah. I'm going to be in Iowa again next week.
Yep. In the home of the motherland of the machine.
Mm-hmm.
All right. We got Ontario, Tracy.
Ajax. Oh, hi, Kathy. Kathy was here yesterday.
Yay.
Yeah, grabbing some batting. Hey, Kathy.
All right. So should we talk about quilt backing? What do you think?
Yeah.
Yeah. So in the comment section, give us your thoughts, your opinions, your questions, and we'll go from there. I know I have my favorites, but it's because I'm lazy. And
We have
I don't want to.
I have a feeling that our favorites may all be the same.
I started using Widebacks because I'm lazy. And back when I used to piece, I was done piecing when the quilt was done. So Wideback worked well.
I used to use up all my fabric and do fancy backs on my quilts, and let me tell you, Wideback's faster.
Mm-hmm.
So awesome. And then we also have first time person, Zako from Boston. That's cool.
Ooh.
Yeah, I'm lazy.
Welcome.
Widebacks are amazing. And the fact that they are growing and that companies are willing to add more and more on a daily basis, I think is a fabulous thought. But piecing is fabulous if you want to make it even more fun on the back. There's pluses and minuses to both, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
So-
for sure. For sure.
Oh,
Are there-
Mary asked a good question.
Yeah, we have questions coming in. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, perfect.
Let's do this one right here. It says, I don't use anything but widebacks anymor. So,
She's
all
one of
right,
our peeps.
Darlis. And then we
You're
have,
one of us.
are there any widebacks that are prone to bearding? And if so, how would a person prevent this?
Yes, there are. Yes. Do you want me to handle this one?
Yes, go
Yeah.
for it.
Good too? Okay, so yes, there are some widebacks that you will bearding a little bit, but you'll get pull lines in a lot of widebacks. So you may think it's batting, but when you really start looking at it, it'll be a white pull line up the material. And the reason that you're seeing widebacks start to do that more is that there are more widebacks that are being surface dyed or printed instead of being fully submerged in dye. So they're very white on the inside and very, dark colors on the backside or bright colors on the backside. So anytime you see printed on a wideback, you will get more pull lines in it and there's more chance that there'll be bearding as well. And one of the ways you can prevent that is to use a ballpoint needle.
Perfect. And we have a question real quick. Don't mean to interrupt too much, Angela, but what is a pull line from Darlis?
So a pull line is when you take your stitch and you get the hole and then it separates the dye. So it separates the dye on the back of the wideback and you see the white from the inside, pulling through to the back. And what's happening is that your weave is actually moving apart. And that doesn't wash away. That once it separates, it separates. So when you're doing your test off, you're doing your test stitch off, it's really important to look at the back and make sure that you're not getting those pulls happening. There's a lot of people that print fabric now, but one of the first ones in the industry was Spoonflower. Spoonflower is local to me. They're actually out of Durham, North Carolina, which is, I live between Raleigh and Durham. Pull, pull lines. Yeah. And we saw it with them. So that's one of the reasons that I found out that the ballpoint needles help with that, right? Is because I was trying to help figure out why it was happening on so many things that they were printing.
So Joan is, for one thing, I love when Joan comes in the store. She's a great character. She's a phenomenal quilter just to watch. But I love widebacks. I cannot lie.
And I can hear that as soon as I read it. I love widebacks and I cannot lie. I won't say the next line because I'm pretty sure there's a swear word in there.
Well, there's pretty sure, yeah, and not only
I'll
that,
stop
but
there.
also, yeah, we don't want to get the strike.
Right. So
No.
just real quick with the backing, which battings are less prone to bearding?
Ones that are actually dyed all the way through, things like batiks, which are dyed completely through, and then things that are fabric that is dyed in a traditional way. So printing of fabric is cheaper, and you're going to see more and more fabric companies going to printing because they can do smaller runs. They don't have to invest in as many bolts of fabric. So they are going towards printing all different kinds of fabric, not just wideback, because it's cheaper and they can keep their fabric lines fresh.
But I would say batting, you would have something probably with a scrim on it, like the
batting.
batting.
I saw backing. Sorry.
You're fine.
Sorry.
But batting, you'd have the scrim on the back, right?
Yeah, and having the scrim the right way.
Yeah.
Scrim face down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. All right. Then here's the phenomenal questions. Should the backing be washed first because of shrinkage?
Was the fabric on the front washed? because you should do the same to both. You should do this.
Yes. You should, right? You should do right. I always tell everybody, if you wash the back or wash the front, you need to wash the back, and wash the back, you need to wash the front. But I mean, hopefully you've done that before you've pieced it, right? Right. What do you
And
say?
if you quilt for other people, just ask your customer when they bring it, or recommend, as part of the how to prepare your quilt for the long armor. We talked about that. Oh, that's next week's podcast, isn't it? That wasn't this week's. That's next week's.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
We will be talking
so anyways,
about it.
we're talking about how to prepare your quilt for the long armor. So if you're a piecer and you're sending your stuff out, then if you've washed your quilt top fabric before you've pieced it, then you should wash your backing. If you haven't washed the top, then it's not as necessary. Although I am still nervous about the whole blood red wide backing.
Yeah.
I know they don't run the way they used to, but I've always been nervous of red. So
yeah, but I've had Hoffman batiks that they boil there, so they shouldn't run. And I've had red batik like run, and I couldn't stop it from running. Now, in Hoffman's defense, my the fabric shop owner sent an email to Hoffman, told him it was going, had taken the bolt off of her shelf. So she had the SKU numbers and everything, and they asked for the bolt, right? Because they said it shouldn't be running the way it was. I mean, we had washed it like 20 times and it was still running just straight red dye. So with red fabrics, I'm always going to check them from now on, because I would have had a pink quilt.
Yeah.
I did a Judy Niemeyer with batiks blue. It was a monster, and it was pieced. It was not a wide back, but it was a pieced batik. And my when we got done, because the thread matched so well, we just had to do a lot of feel tests to see how the tension was, just to make double, triple sure, because she did, all our quilters deserve that. And everybody, when we touched it, our hands were blue afterwards. So I called her and I said, when you wash this, you need to put in 50,000 die catchers to make sure. All right. So Maureen asks a really good question. Since you brought up ballpoint needles, would you recommend ballpoint needles for the general quilting?
No, not unless you need them. There are some fabrics it's easier, but for most of the time, I like my needles to be sharp. And a ballpoint actually has a little ball on the end of it. So most of the time, you don't need it, right?
And I will, as being a long armor and talking to the more digital printing reps that are coming around and handling out fabric, and we're talking about this, I'm like, so are they working on that with, do they recommend a ballpoint needle as being quilted or pieced and different things like that? And they said what they're trying to do is they're finding out with the digital printing, if they can make it what they call little busy in the background, you're not going to see the runs or the issues as much if it's busy. So great examples, the Hoffman flower panels really have changed over the past few years greatly, right?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So,
yeah. And I will say this, if you are using titanium needles, now I'm also going to preference this with APQS suggests you don't do that on their machines, but if your manufacturer says it's okay to use titanium needles, all titanium needles are ballpoint. It's part of the dipping process. They only use ballpoint needles to dip in titanium.
Oh, I didn't know. I learned my second learned thing.
They're all universal needles and they're all ballpoint. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. So let's talk about, this is a great one from Mary. Can you talk about squaring up a wide back? Why is it sometimes I load a wide back that I think it is square and one side is droopy? We have a magic solution for that though as well. So we'll talk about squaring up first.
I don't square up anything with wide backs. I just load them, but I load them selvage to selvage. So they're never cut straight unless you physically square them. they're not going to roll straight. So I have a loading video on YouTube for anybody who is interested in that. The way I load, I don't get a droop, and you'll have to watch. I don't want to take up this time for that. Go watch that video if you want. But I load selvage to selvage on the rollers. And then I focus on the straightness of the fabric when I attach it to the back, because I load from the front first. And quite often when I'm attaching the selvage on the other side, it's not perfectly straight on my leader with my clamp. I'll have one that's just at the leader, and then the other side maybe a little bit hanging over longer. But my droop and my dip is good, and I don't have any waffles or anything. So I will load it that way. Unless you've squared it completely before you start to load it, as you're winding it onto your belly bar, or if you load from the back first and you're winding it onto your pickup roller, unless that's been completely squared, it's not going to be perfectly straight running down the sides as you're winding it onto the roller. That's okay. It's okay, because it wasn't cut straight off the bolt. Or these, I've got these pre-cuts. They're not cut perfectly straight either. So don't worry about that part. It's more that it's laying properly on the frame. That was kind of long-winded, wasn't it?
No, it's what she's saying is perfectly correct. And the only way that you would be able to square up a wide back is to actually do. You remember, in anybody who was in a home ec, we did pull test on fabric to find out where the true grain was on a fabric. You would need to do that. Ripping it isn't going to make it perfectly straight. Cutting it isn't going to make it perfectly straight. They both have issues, and they're both going to end up kind of like trapezoids. So, I mean, the only way that you're going to get it to be able to actually get it straight is to find the grain, and you would have to do a pull test, meaning pulling one thread all the way across, right, from salvage to salvage.
And I promise never to make my customers wait that long.
Nope. So what's our trick?
Well, I was just going to go and reiterate a little bit. So I'm a pinner, and then I have people who are zippers here.
I'm a zipper.
And zippers for our renters. When I pin, I load the belly bar first, and when I rolls around, I do have a mark of where the center-ish is, at least what it showed on when you fold it in corners, right? Most of the time, that's not on the center line of where my leaders are. And if it's laying right, if it's laying beautiful, like Tracy said, and it doesn't have the droop and everything looks fine on the front, I let that be that way.
Yeah. And do you guys ever like take the salvages and you know, kind of move them against each other to see if there's pulls in your fabric?
Yes.
That's how I mark to find my center, is I make sure that the fabric, it doesn't want to put a pull line in it. And then I mark both of them so that they're the same. It may not even be in the center of the wide back. Unless my wide back is really, really wide, I don't have to worry about loading straight to the center of my leaders. Wherever I pin and it's the same on both sides, I just load that to the center point on my leaders.
Perfect. Lay it out on the bar, folded to see if there's any ripples in your fold, and then move that one side back and forth.
And as soon as you don't have a ripple, you found the two sides, right, where it needs to join. And mine's probably close to the center, but I mean, I can be 12 inches off and be okay, right?
I don't mark the center though. Like that waffle trick there to straighten it out. I always did that with my piecing fabrics. Like when you're going to cut your fabric, and you only ever do that, pro tip, because I used to teach piecing. When you straighten that out, say you've got a meterage and you're going to cut a whole bunch of stuff. So you want to sort of straighten it out. And when you lay it down and you get it laying nicely, you're only going to work for about a meter. And then once you've cut about a meter, you're going to stop, pick up your length of fabric again and do it again. And it will have shifted slightly, because you can really only even out about a meter at a time to make sure that it stays true. But finding the center, personally, lots of people are going to disagree with me. I don't care. I don't find the center of my backing on the bottom and on the top, and then find it and mark it with put it to the center mark on a canvas leader and line it all up. I stand sort of in the middle of the frame. I throw it over. I've got my selvage here, my selvage over there, and I load it so that I wind it on, and then when I load it to the back, I'm watching the way it lays, and I shift it so that it's laying properly, and then I clamp it. And it's always
I do
worked
it
for
the
me.
opposite way. I still load from the front, but I do it the opposite way that you do. I put it onto my backing, my take-up roller, and I have it drooped over the front roller, and I roll it up with my automatic feed, right? But I'm watching it the whole time and making sure it's not shifting, right?
Right.
That it's, so I teach people a couple different ways to load things on, because you're always going to have that exception to the rule that that you're going to have to figure out a different way to do it. But yeah, I don't square up customer backings when I get them in.
No. We just
They
cut them
go
right off
back
the
as
roll and put
wonky.
'em right
Sometimes
out.
there's big sections sticking out in off of mine, and as long as I can get it loaded where I feel like it's going to be flat, we go with it, and we don't have problems. We're not getting pleats in our backing. So I mean, you can take things too far too, is what I'm trying to say, I guess.
Right. And with our renters who don't necessarily have the gauge of it being resting on the long arm because they're pinning it home.
Right. My renters have to find the center.
Right. So what we do is roll back and forth a couple of times, and it's magic. We always tell them, because they're all like, oh no, look at this. And we're like, here, we'll show you a magic trick. And we roll it back and forth a little bit, and it's amazing.
But if it doesn't, for some reason, at that point, I help them repin to get it right. So
yes.
Yeah. So yeah, most of the time we can do the same thing, roll it back and forth, and it'll straighten out. But if it doesn't, then we're going to help them repin real quick. And there are times that you get backings that are like that aren't laying straight and they're drooping. If you have a clothes steamer, it is your best friend. So I mean, you can steam backings that are already on your long arm, and steam will make things get smaller. Like when you're doing drapery or home deck, you size things and steam them to make them get smaller so that they're not drooping and things like that, right? So it's the same thing on the long arm.
Perfect.
And if you don't have a steamer, just use your steam iron. Don't put pressure. Just use the steam from the iron. As long as you're not pressing with the iron and you're just blasting it with steam, it's going to do the same thing.
Very true.
So we have Tammy here. I'm working on a memory quilt with photos, going to echo stitches around them. Will it be okay with a sharp needle or a ball point using long arm, not domestic?
I would be using a ballpoint in that point, because she is printing those pictures. If you are quilting directly on those pictures, I would use a ballpoint needle.
Right. Yeah, those pictures are a little bit different. It's a memory quilt. It's a little bit different.
They're stiff.
Yeah, there's some stuff.
It's stiffer than, they don't have to be super stiff when they're printed, but a lot of times they are going to be a little stiffer than normal fabric.
Hey, we have a way to print without being super stiff, and it has to be, your fabric has to be washed ahead of time and sized, and it is kind of cool. So then there wouldn't be any of that running. So there's big strides in the industry that way on the printing. I'm super excited about what's coming in the future of that as well. So.
Yeah, it's good. But on her memory quilt, is she printing them? Is she having them professionally printed? I mean, if you're using the stuff that you put through an inkjet, that's going to be a little stiffer than it would be if you were having it professionally printed.
And it's perfectly fine to use that, because it's a great product. Great product. All
now,
right.
Tammy, can I just go back and ask Tammy a question? She says she's going to echo stitch. So do you mean you're just going to do like a 1/4 inch echo straight line with a ruler just to sort of make a little frame, or are you echo stitching around faces? Because that
might change that answer too. Yeah.
Yeah, that would change the answer. Good catch, Tracy.
So we'll go on, but Tammy, just type that in and we'll revisit and just to see.
And then Judy says she's loads from salvage to fast salvage. You must have watched your video. Jones just talked about Angela, how you'd load. That's really awesome. Let's talk about Minky.
Minky. Okay, so Shannon Fabric would really like us to call it Cuddle.
Well, but you could get Minky from Joann's. So there's different.
You can get Minky from Joann's, but if it's at your local quilt store, it is most likely a brand called Cuddle. And it's the by Shannon, which is why they would really like us to call it Cuddle. But I love it. We just did 2 in our showroom this week that have Minky on the back of them. or Cuddle on the back of them. Sorry.
fine.
We had this conversation the other day, and I'm trying to be better.
Oh my! You should have been okay. You should have had the Shannon rep in your store and calling it Minky. Wah, 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 wah.
And I'm like, and I have a this is part of the whole thing that we were talking about living all over the place. I have had Minky blankets since the 1980s.
Mm-hmm.
It's something from Japan, right? So it's a fabric type too. So I'm like, yeah, I understand what they're saying, but it sculpts when you quilt it. Let's just get back to the whole, looks like a stuffed animal fabric that we use, right? So when you're quilting with it, you get the designs on the back really stand out and they're gorgeous. So definitely I would use it. And then you're going to get people that are really, you have to load it by the salvage. You can't turn it 90 degrees. And I'm going to say, I do it both ways. I'm very careful not to stretch it either way, right?
That's the most important thing with that.
That's the important part of it, right?
Yeah.
But if you have to turn it 90 degrees, just be careful when you load it on. I do try to put the salvage on the leaders, but if I can't for some reason, I don't stress out over it either.
Well, and within the Cuddle system, there is a whole bunch of different layers of thickness, right? Mm-hmm. So yes, Darla's Cuddle and Minky can be used for the same thing. Minky's a little bit less pile. Cuddle is a thicker pile. Within the Shannon fabrics, we have Seal. Seal has a thicker pile. They're even coming out with some more that's even thicker. Some people worry about using that thick pile on the long arm. And yes, when you bring your needle down, chunk, chunk, and you come back up, you can catch some of that pile at first, but then it's going to wash out. When you wash it, it's going to come back down to the back. So don't be afraid to try the thicker seals, the thicker piles, because they're fabulous.
Mm-hmm. So good. Just don't stretch them. So when you're loading your backing fabric, like when you're loading cotton, you want it flat. You never want it tight, but you want it flat. So I'll sort of make it almost flat, and then I back it off just a little bit so that I can actually see just a very slight. I don't even want to use the word dip. Just soft. You want it to be soft, because with that flannel, fireside, Minky, Cuddle, whatever those things you want to call all those things, as soon as they're flat, they're stretching.
They're too tight.
We don't want them flat. You want a little bit of a belly to them, and they'll be fine. And don't apologize, Carrie. Look, she in there, she said sorry. Don't say sorry.
No,
it's all good.
No, it's okay.
It's all good.
We think it's kind of funny that the Shannon rep got as upset as they did, and we're trying for them. We understand what they're saying. We're trying.
Well, this one I didn't know because I had them in my
thing.
I had them in my store, and we had words all over the store. Minky, 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 and we're just like, oh no.
He's like, not Minky. It's not Minky.
I know. So, and even still, I call it Minky every day. It's fine. It's all perfect. We just make fun of ourselves, Carrie. That's all I'm saying. All right. So Darlis, kind of this question right here. This question right here. So is Cuddle and Minky the same? Well, we can talk about Minky and Cuddle as some differences. I can talk about how different fabrics are from a quilt store versus a box store. So, there's a reason that our fabrics are a little bit more, is because they're a better quality. So I would just probably think about it that way. It's just a little bit better quality. And I'm proud of the fabrics that I have in my store for sure. So Tammy says, Tracy, here's your answer.
So you were right, Tracy.
I'm stitching 1/4 of an inch from the ditch, not over the faces. There are 5 photos. Just do your thing.
Do your thing. Don't worry about it.
You're good. Don't worry about it.
I thought you were going around the outside of the heads, right?
Yeah.
So, if you're not really stitching on it, don't worry about it.
No, you'll be fine.
Right. Angela, I think this might be a next question for you from Darla. It says, how would Cuddle on the back work with machine embroidery? I have stayed away from the embroidery machines, because the second I go down that rabbit hole, I'm going to be gone.
So can you embroider with Cuddle? Definitely. Are you talking about having a quilt that has machine embroidery? That would still be fine. The reason that I'm hedging is because typically when you embroider, you've got a stabilizer on the back, not Minky or Cuddle, right? So if you're using it for the back of something that you're doing and in the hoop project, still would be fine.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay. So they do make Sojourning Tracy. They do make beautiful quilts. I am so in love with 90 wide Cuddle. I have almost every color now. And when I have my renters that come in and use their Cuddle, I make sure I run you can see the designs just pop on the back of that, just plain Cuddle, and the design, the quilting is, and that's where my heart is. Tracy, that's where I remember one of our conversations talking about how when you fell in love with long arming, the texture, and I feel long arming
texture.
Yeah, the long arming and Cuddle makes the texture, Minky makes it like amazing. So then here's another $1 million question with Cuddle or Minky, whatever we want to call it here today.
With.
I vote for with.
I vote for with.
Absolutely.
Okay. Now, I've used really thin battings with it before. I mean, I live in the warmest climate of the three of us, so I have people ask me all the time if they can do it without. You can use things like, I think it's not Timtex. That's the really stiff stuff. There's a batting that's super, super thin, but doesn't come apart. And it's I think it's by Pellon, but I don't remember what the name of it is.
Yeah.
And it starts with a T. Can't think of it at the moment, but it's thin. It's like the weight of Request, which is a Dream product, right? But Request you can put your fingers through, so I wouldn't suggest long arming with that level of batting from Dream. But there is a really thin batting that I have used with it, and I'll try to think of what it is and put it on the put it in the notes later.
I know what you're trying to say. I can't remember the name of it either. The quilt shop I worked at years ago used to sell it. I put regular batting in.
Thermore. Thank you. That's it.
Who came up with that? Catherine. Thank you.
She's like, oh, they're suffering. I'm just going to tell them.
Somebody help me. Help us off the struggle bus.
Yeah.
Right.
When Tracy and I are both looking at each other going, what is the name of that batting? We've both used it.
And I'm over here just ignoring everybody. It's all good.
My poor father-in-law, he came for a visit today. He's just the loveliest man. He came for a visit today and we got talking about movies. And he could not remember the name of any of the actors that he was trying to talk about. And he was getting frustrated and I was getting frustrated because then I couldn't remember the names. So while he's talking, I'm Googling. I'm listing all these actors. That's him. It's the same thing. You can't remember the word.
Right. And then this is for you, Angela, Tracy. I only have a machine embroidery quilt block. So okay. That was that.
Yeah, if you're going to be quilting it, you're fine.
You're perfect. We're going to be great. What about piece backing? What are some tips for piece backing?
Press your seams. Please press your seams.
Yeah, if you did it, press the seams. If your customer did it, I would still tell you that they needed to press their seams. And it's not a time where you want seams going in multiple directions. You want them all going, like the one seam going in one direction and not flipped. Yeah. But yeah, I do a lot of quilts that have fancy backs on them because that's it's big in the modern quilting arena, and we quilt a lot of modern quilts.
Right.
So
for sure.
I respect them. I think they're beautiful. I don't, that's two quilts for me. Right. So, and I have not pieced a quilt. Well, I technically pieced one in 2020 when we were shut down during the isolation period. Right. But only one top. So I'd still be waiting for the back for that one.
Right.
Right. So yeah, that's my problem is I just don't have time. I think they're beautiful.
I have a lady.
I mean, predominantly there's an exception to every rule you make. Right. So, one of the things we talked about the other day, you're going to see it here in the podcast on Monday when it's released, but is predominant seams on your quilts and having them on your backing, right? And having them parallel to your rollers if you're long arming. It's easier that way, okay, to have the majority of your seams being parallel to your long arm. If they are not parallel to your long arm, it's a lot more work to get them on and keep them flat, right? You can do it. It's just more work, right? So anytime you see a piece back, it's going to be a little more work for you.
I have a lady who is going around and she's rescuing unfinished, unquilted quilt tops, just the quilt tops from antique stores, and she pieces the backing. So it's really like 2 quilts in one.
Yeah.
So it's just fabulous. So Susie, I will get to your question in just a second, but Judy has one here. Do you press seams open or to one side? I would say open and a bigger seam allowance, not the 1/4 inch. Definitely a bigger seam allowance and not in the selvage.
And not dead center in the backing either. Because the first thing you're going to do when you fold a quilt is most people are going to quilt it in half. And then you have the weakest part of your backing, the part that's exposed, if that makes sense, that, you put a crease in to something that's, the weakest part of the backing. So I tend to not put seams in the center of quilts to begin with. But yeah, I like them open and not, and wider. But I'll do it both ways. I'm not going to repress if they pressed it the other way.
Nope. When using Minky as backing, do you have any suggestions for keeping it from stretching out of shape?
Yeah, just don't tighten it too much on the rollers. When you've got it flat, then back it off just a little bit, like I said, so it just kind of dips slightly, and then you know that it's not pulled. And be very careful with your clamps on the side.
Because it'll do like pull lines.
It'll pull, yeah. And don't baste when you're working down your quilt. Don't baste the sides of your quilt with your clamps on.
Yeah.
Right.
Because if you are pulling a little bit on that backing fabric and you're basting stretched fabric.
So do you advanced baste and then clamp most of the time, Tracy?
Yes.
Advanced, okay.
I baste and then I put my clamps on, and I always make sure that my clamps, they're just meant to hold
it so it doesn't flip, right?
And I don't want any pull at all. But if the backing is laying nice, and like we talked about, I think it's probably in the podcast episode, I like at least 5 inches on either side. So quite often I don't even use the clamps if I don't feel that I need to.
Okay, so I don't actually use the clamps. I use the other end of the elastic and pin it to
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you can do that too. Just make sure it's not pulling though, right?
Well, yeah, because
Whatever
I feel like I
method
can
you're
keep it from pulling easier if I do that. There's not the weight of the clamp that's then pulling down on that backing either.
Yeah,
right. The elastic doesn't weigh as much. So this is one of those things that's not a rule, guys, right? There is no rule that says you have to use the clamps that come with your long arm. You can use the other end to attach to your quilt top too, and you still have an adjustment. So yeah, do what works for you. And for anybody who has a millie, it's great if you have an older millie with the thread cutter on the left side, because that hits your clamps early, right? Because it's wider. So I have been doing that for years and years and years. And, I just every once in a while replace the elastic, on it, because they will start fraying after a while. But yeah, I don't actually use the metal clamps.
Yeah, that works.
And I don't replace the metal clamps. It's because it's what comes on the machines. And I feel like if people are coming in to see the machines, they need to see how they come.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
So Roberta says she just asks for the horizontal seams and explains why. That's beautiful. Just having that conversation with the customer, the most important thing. Yeah. Sometimes I've had customers where we've had kitty cats, and if you do them horizontal, you're going to have not the same direction. If some like fabric is like a directional, the kitty cats are all sitting up. We can't necessarily, do that.
Just turn the quilt top.
All right.
If they have a directional pantograph, though, I mean, I can see where she's coming. You can have enough things that are directional to force.
But if you're not having a directional pantograph, you just turn the quilt top.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Sure. For sure. For sure. Get into the next question. So we just had this question. We don't have a preference on which way we load. We just don't want it to be tight. We want it to have a very soft feel on the long arm. So you can load both ways. Sometimes you have to. I have a customer who has an 80 by 96 quilt. There's no way 90 Minky is going to work unless they want to piece it. And some people don't want to piece it. So we cut the length and they use the width of the 90. So that's nice too. So, all right, Mary, what happens when the clamps then baste? I've always done it this way and haven't noticed anything wrong with the quilt or gotten any complaints.
Perfect. Then you're not pulling your backing with your clamps, which is awesome.
Doing a good job.
Yeah. There's, again, just be careful and get that softness out of the Minky Cuddle, not tight. So
I've quilted entire quilts and forgotten to put my clamps on. So there's an exception to every rule, right? And you get to make the rules in your world. So you don't have to, you don't have to make excuses for them. If it works for you, it is working. Right.
And experiment and learning and watching and just being aware of what's going on your long arm, I think is the number one hint that I can give everybody, just to be in tune with your machine and watch what's going on.
Listen to it.
Yes.
If it doesn't sound right, I'd be looking to see why it doesn't sound right.
Right.
As soon as mine doesn't sound right and I quilted an entire row, I'm picking out an entire row. Well, that happened this week too. So yeah, it's been an interesting week.
Is it a week that your seam ripper needs a seam ripper?
Yeah.
That one's almost ripped out.
All right.
That's a pretty quilt.
It is.
It's a beautiful quilt. Not so much the quilting.
So
yeah, the quilting will be beautiful.
I just didn't like what I was doing. I went in a direction. I'm custom quilting it, and when
and you stop.
No.
And you should have stopped.
It's me. Let's remember who this is. I'm going and I'm thinking, nah, I don't like it. Stop. 10 minutes later, you should stop now because you're going to take it out and just keep going.
Yeah. And an hour later, you're like, why didn't I stop? Yeah.
Yeah. So I called the client and said, it's going to be a little longer. I don't like it. And I'm going to take it all out and start over.
So what you're really saying is you're normal? Because I think we've all been there.
Yeah. It's a really pretty quilt, though. It's got fish and...
it is cute. My camera's in a weird position and I'm looking to see the quilt.
It's fish and seaweed and stuff. So it's going to have waves on the bottom and bubbles sort of moving into bubbles on the top. And it'll be a wall. It's going on over a canvas on a wall, high on a wall. Yeah. So yeah, we're just going to keep unripping tomorrow. Or unstitching, I should say.
Unstitching. I'm doing one right now that I think I need to call and just say this pantograph is really not the right one because I was not the one who brought in the quilt and I would have never suggested this pantograph. And it's just, we need to have a conversation. And then ultimately I'm going to leave it up to the customer because it's the customer's request. But so.
Okay. Oh, Teresa's new.
Woo-hoo!
Welcome to the world of quilting.
Super excited you're here from Missouri.
Newbie on the long arm. Well, I'm glad you're learning stuff, Teresa.
Yep, that's a lot of fun. It's always a great thing to kind of learn all of this great stuff. Let me get rid of this banner to make us a little bit bigger. Go back to the question. Look at this. I'm learning without Jake. Look at that.
You're a pro.
Not really. I mean, flying by the seat of my pants these days. It's all good. I was actually laughing today because my front door, there was a problem with the front door. And I'm like, and now I am the groundskeeper.
I'm the maintenance person.
Right. And then the phone wasn't working. And I'm like, and now I'm a telephone repair person.
There's a lot of hats in a day.
Yep, it sure is. But I
Welcome
love
to
them.
being a store owner. Yeah.
Yeah. I wish, the multitasking that goes on is pretty awesome, isn't it?
Yeah. I say that. I like owning a store, but there's days that I'm like, oh man. I could be
retired.
Like my house.
I fired myself today.
And
I may have a review tomorrow and rehire myself, but today I fired my butt.
And I'm looking at her like, oh no.
You're done. You're out of here.
Okay.
Go home.
At some point, we need to have a bell sound. The one time that Tracy gets us with a comment that we both get the dead
We both look at her like,
and we're at that point.
Yeah,
Oh yeah. You fired. Go home.
if I was going to fire anyone that worked for me, it would be me. So I get it.
Well, I'm the only one here, so I'm the only one I can fire. So there you go.
I know. Mm.
Oh my gosh. So that is going to be for the next thing. We're going to definitely make sure I have a little sound thing. And now we're at the point in the video where we are all, Tracy's got us deadpan.
Judy wants to make sure you pay yourself termination pay.
Well, I'm hoping so, but I don't think it's going to get me very far. Oh dear.
Oh,
okay. Back to what we're supposed to talk about.
Morgan, I bought a long arm several months ago, and I'm still haven't had the nerve to do anything but practice. Well, that's fabulous that you're even practicing. So don't say you have only done practice. That is fabulous that you're practicing. Maybe someday I'll have the nerve to put on a real quilt.
Throw it on there, Morgan. You're not cutting into someone's brain.
Like, you can pick it out. It's not a big deal. And
you can pick it out.
You can pick it out.
18 years, you can pick it out.
Well, and if you have a guild near you that does charity quilts, ask them for some. Yeah. Because quilted is better than not quilted.
Right. People will happily let you practice on their stuff. So
but if you're going to become a professional long armor, I would not take quilts from your friends to practice on.
No, but I would do charity quilts.
Charity quilts are great.
Right. And they're usually smaller too. So
quilts of valor, great.
And I guarantee you, Morgan, that you are better than you think you are already. So just load a quilt, pull off the Band-Aid and do it. And then send us a photograph, please.
Absolutely. Like so she said frog sewing, rip it, rip it.
Rip it, rip it. Yeah.
Yeah.
We all do it. You've got to practice that too.
Unsewing is a skill. Unsewing is a skill.
It is a skill. It's skill that's necessary to have. So
it is.
Right.
Someone can practice on.
See?
Morgan. Vernita has a quilt for you. Talk amongst yourselves.
But here we are solving the problems of the world.
Yeah, exactly. The fact
that you're one quilt at a time.
One quilt at a time. The fact that you're practicing and at least have the machine on makes all of our hearts happy for sure.
Yeah.
The saddest thing I want to hear is I have a long arm and I haven't turned it on in several months, days, weeks, years. That makes us sad.
Yeah. And that's abusive behavior towards the machine as well. So please don't leave them sitting, collecting dust and getting cold and lonely.
Yeah.
They are our friends. All right.
There. See?
And also too, I find this, just do it and then it looks so much better when it's off the frame.
Yeah. Don't second guess yourself while it's on the frame. Like, it's one thing for Tracy to second guess herself. She's got a lot of experience doing this. Most of us need to take it off the frame and look at it before we really judge ourselves.
Right.
Yeah.
I tell my renters that there's magic pixie dust that shakes off when you go from here to this horizontal to the vertical. Something beautiful happens. So it was good. All right. Well, Anything else that you want to try? Some Widebacks. Enjoy them. They come in 118s, 108s, 60s, and 90s and 60s. The Cuddle and the Minky are the 90 and the 60 more so. I've only seen one 90 in my little life of having my reps come around to my little store. And that was the Australian fabric, which we had somebody on from Australia, by the way. It was so cool. I saw her name go by. And but since then they haven't gotten that one back, and I'm really kind of sad that they never got that 90 wide back, that 90-inch cotton back. I was like, please bring that back. But they're fun. Wide backs. Piecing your back is fun.
Yeah, there's got to be thousands of them out there right now. Thousands of different. I mean, you have 600 different ones in your store, so
right.
Yeah, there's got to be thousands and thousands of them.
We have actually part of our store is called Wideback Way. Because I just, and all of my reps know, first thing, what's new in Widebacks? Show me the new. And they always, they walk in with like the folders first. Here's the one. Like they know they're coming to see me. So
I have reps stop and see me, and all I sell is Wideback. I don't sell any other fabric at all. So they'll walk in and they'll go, "Where's your fabric?" And I was like, "Wideback." Like if you're not selling Wideback, I'm not your girl.
My favorite backing, whether it's wide or pieced, although I'm always a fan of the wide, I love flannel for the backs of quilts. It's it's so much more snuggly and cuddlier, and it makes it stick to the bed. If it's going on a bed, it sticks to the bed better. And it comes in wide as well. That's my favorite. But I also live in Ontario, so it gets pretty cold here in the wintertime. So flannel backing is good here.
Fabulous. Vandertex has some wonderful 108 flannel Widebacks.
Yeah. If you live in Arizona or
North Carolina.
What's that? The Mojave Desert or somewhere like that. You might not want flannel.
No. Or Cuddle or Minky.
But
no,
I'm Canadian.
Cuddle
So.
in the winter. I actually like Cuddle on one side, thin back batting, and satin teen on the other. I can use those year round because Cuddle doesn't get hot. But no, flannel is not something I use in North Carolina. That would be sweltering.
You got a great comment there from Barb. Tracy?
You do.
Barbara.
Oh,
that's very nice. Thank you. Barbara, I'm glad you're enjoying it.
That's pretty cool. So right, also here, we talked about this earlier. No, we don't square up it. We roll it on one bar and then attach it to the other bar, whichever way we roll first. And we let the backing be and try not to fight the centers, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Anything else you guys want to say?
I just want to say to Barbara, she said she couldn't wait to actually stitch something. So Barbara, what a lot of my students have done, instead of quilting or building the whole top, which is that orangey reddish with the white background, you can do table runners and do the blocks that way, whether you do like of the same or whatever. So you don't have to piece the whole quilt. And of course, everything that's in there applies to anything, not just the sampler quilt. So yeah, get stitching and send me photos, please.
And not a dumb question ever. No question is ever dumb. Can scraps from Widebacks be used in quilt fronts?
Sure. Of course.
And binding. I tell people if they have like a 70, a 50 by 70, and they want that wide back, you can use that last quite a bit as your binding as well if you want. So, and we didn't talk about the economics of Wideback.
Oh, it's cheaper. It has to be, because once you buy fabric and you start cutting it up and putting it back together, I mean, it gets a lot more expensive. You're paying for another quilt to put on the back of the quilt. If you're doing a fancy back, if you have to cut like 3 rows or 3 widths of fabric to get it wide enough, yeah, you definitely should have gone out and found Wideback at that point.
Yeah, because at that point you've got 9 meters of regular fabric to make 3 panels of 40 wide, right? So you're going for 120 by 120.
Mhm.
That's 9 meters of fabric instead of 3,
Right.
right?
Right. And Wideback is about twice as expensive, not 3 times as expensive.
So
Right.
it's cheaper and it's faster.
It is.
Faster gets our hearts happier because that quilt gets on the long arm faster.
Oh,
Mhm.
have you ever heard of Birdie Burr batting?
Yes, I have.
Oh,
So I have it in the store.
Nope.
So it is actually flannel with a thin batting in between. The idea is it's going to be better for a domestic machine or a sit down mid arm
Okay.
because you wouldn't have to necessarily pin. I would still not trust it probably as much. And then that you
Oh.
can go ahead and free motion with it.
Okay, so wait, it's 3 layers?
Very, 2 flannel and 1 very thin, like batting-ish. I haven't looked at it.
So are they
recently.
together by adhesive or
They're stitched together
it's
every so
like,
often. Just squares. Like
so it's already kind of quilted?
Sort of.
Hmm.
I think so. The last time I looked. Now I could be wrong because a lot has happened in my last little life here the past month with us doing some stuff. So, I got to look at it for sure again.
And I would be worried on a long arm. I would be worried about it being flannel that it would be hard to get it to not have ripples in it because it's going to want to stick to your backing.
Mm-hmm. Really good for domestic machine quilting or mid-arm where you're moving the fabric through. And that's why it was developed, was for that purpose, so you wouldn't have to pin. Because I don't know about some of you, if I put more than 10 pins into a quilt, I am toast and done with my fingers. So I think that's the whole process behind that. This is how we don't have to pin as much.
Is that the brand name, Birdie Bird, or is it a type? I've never heard of it before.
Birdie Bird is the name brand.
Is it a name brand?
Okay.
No.
You know what we're going to be Googling when this is done because never heard of it.
I can go grab some and show you real quick.
I'll Google that when I get home.
Yeah.
Right. So we are at about an hour, guys. Can you believe that? That was a blink of an eye.
Yeah.
That was
That was
awesome.
good.
It was awesome.
Fabulous
I hope everybody learned something. Sorry, I'm trying to read at the same time.
Yeah, we're both reading.
Well, adhesive.
I don't think
maybe Vernita, you could put a little bit of adhesive. Then I'm getting myself down a hole of doing a lot of work for something that should be easier. That's the whole idea of that flannel. And then Morgan said, thank you. She's glad she found us learning a whole bunch. Hey, Morgan, thanks for sharing. And if you can share the word about our podcast and this here, the Quilting Academy, we will have a link. I will adjust my YouTube description here in a little bit with links to the Quilting Academy. I'm sure you guys will be doing the same as well and adding some more descriptions to your YouTubes. We didn't get a chance to do it ahead of time. And keep sharing.
Barbara wants to know if Tracy's going to have at the showroom classes this summer.
I really should. I've been trying to build some new classes other than my 2-day boot camp, like smaller, like a 4 or 5 hour class in a day instead of like 9 to 6, 2 days in a row. So, are you fairly local, Barbara? I don't know where you live, but I'm working on new classes. Yes, is my answer.
And if you guys, call her definitely and set up classes.
Right.
Because if she knows she's got interest, she'll set them up. So,
I love teaching.
It's my favorite part of what we do.
It is. I love teaching.
So the best way that y'all could help us out now, we love all of you guys, and we're so glad you tuned in tonight. This is fabulous. It's one of my best times. I'm hanging out with my besties here and hanging out with all of the quilters here. Life could not be better. But what you can do is do a thumbs up for all of our channels, right? And a subscribe to all of our channels. That would be awesome. And to share all of the information because we want to help other quilters, right? We want everybody to be happy quilters. Barb, she's 1 hour away, Tracy. So.
Perfect. Come on over.
You need to go over. I drove from North Carolina to her. So, I mean, an hour is nothing.
An hour's not far. Yeah.
No, not at all. Well, you guys are phenomenal. Next month, we are going to be talking about. Did we discuss what we're talking about next month?
No, I don't know that we've planned
We
that.
haven't planned that yet.
Okay.
I don't
Well,
think
I
so.
forgot.
So we're doing
I
two
forgot. We just
things.
talked yesterday. And
I think
already
we did,
forgot.
and I wrote notes, but I've been trying to stop my world from exploding the last few days. So I can't remember what I wrote down yesterday, but it'll be good. Whatever it is we do, it'll be awesome.
It
We're
will
going to
be.
go live next month.
If you have
remember,
ideas, if they have ideas, please let us know in the comments, because
for sure,
that helps us.
for sure.
Yeah.
And we also have a podcast that we're doing. So, and I think we made the plans for the podcast, Kathy.
That's
so
right.
every Monday at 2 p.m. Eastern time, right? All three of us post a podcast. Or no, it's being posted to the quilting channel, the Quilting Academy now. So
we will share it.
And then you will see trailers for it on our channels. Or we haven't decided how that's going to work. But we do a podcast as well called Three Quirky Quilters. And that will be on the Quilting Academy YouTube channel.
For sure.
Right? Did I get that right, guys?
Yes, you sure did. We're working on making sure the algorithms in the world talks well and nicely to each other. And we're quilters, not SEO or Google or YouTube people. We are quilters.
Right.
So please.
The last 5 weeks have been on everybody's individual channel, but that's changing.
That is changing to make everybody's SEO people happy.
Well, and that we want to be able to bring these to you and not get shut down because of doing whatever it is. We don't even know what it is.
Well,
I don't even know.
Because you can do copyright strikes on each other. This isn't going to happen with the three of us, but
what does SEO mean? I don't even know what that means.
Search
I don't
engine
have
optimization.
Who?
Search engine optimization.
Okay. So, all right. So that's not people. That's like a computer.
Well, we have people that specialize in that Kathy and I are both using. We're not using the same SEO company, but we both have people that are helping us with that.
Because I can't do everything. Because today I was the telephone repair person and the maintenance repair person.
Yeah, I need to clean the toilets. That needs to be a priority in my showroom. Is the toilets need to be cleaned, and I'm the person that does it. So yeah.
Deb says we encouraged her to use her long arm without turning on her computer.
It turned out great. Yay!
Atta girl.
That's so awesome, Deb. That's so beautiful. All right. Shall we say goodnight to everybody? Keep on
good night,
walking,
everybody.
Words.
Night.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye. Happy quilting. Morgan, put something on that frame.
Yeah.